The diplomatic spire of High Ambassador Valen sat atop the crystal tiers of Orikos Prime like a needle of polished glass. Outside, the sector burned in a silent cold war between the Accord and the Obsidian Syndicate. Inside, the air smelled of imported scented ozone and high-born arrogance. Commander Kale, leader of the Valen Honor Guard, adjusted his gilded shoulder plates. His four compound eyes tracked the thin, slightly round-shouldered human sitting at the brass auxiliary desk in the corner. Arthur was 42 standard years old, wore a faded navy wool-blend suit 3 years out of date, and suffered from a soft, recurring cough. His wire-rimmed reading glasses continually slid down the bridge of his nose, which he pushed back up with an ink-stained thumb. "More tea." "Ambassador," Arthur asked quietly, his voice carrying the dry, rasping timbre of someone who spent 8 hours a day indexing transit manifests. "No, Arthur, that will be all." Ambassador Valen replied, without looking up from her holographic ledger. She was an Aurelian, tall, radiant, with skin like hammered pearlescent silver and thin, delicate limbs designed for rhetoric and art, not violence. Commander Kale let out a low, vibrating rumble from his vocal sac, the Aurelian equivalent of a scoff. "I still fail to grasp why the Terran Ministry assigned us a clerical assistant who looks as if a stiff atmospheric draft might break his spine, Ambassador." Arthur didn't look offended. He simply reached into his cardigan pocket, pulled out a microfiber cloth, and began polishing his lenses. "The Ministry values administrative continuity, Commander. Dust accumulates quickly in contested sectors. You are a soft species, human," Kale growled, resting his heavy claw on the hilt of his pulse-saber. "When the Syndicate eventually tests this perimeter, you will be nothing more than biomass blocking the escape hatch. I shall endeavor to stay out of your firing arcs, sir," Arthur said, mildly, sliding his glasses back onto his face. The attack did not begin with sirens. It began with a localized implosion that shook the spire to its bedrock. The heavy tungsten-reinforced doors of the outer reception hall exploded inward in a shower of liquid sparks and white-hot shrapnel. Before the smoke could clear, 4 honor guardsmen were cut down by high-frequency plasma fire, their gilded armor melting into their carapaces before they could draw their weapons. "Ambassador, retract into the inner vault," Kale roared, firing his sidearm blindly into the doorway. Syndicate shock troopers, hulking, 6-limbed Carcarian mercenaries clad in void-rated power armor, swarmed through the breach. Leading them was Vaughn, a notorious Syndicate enforcer whose face was a patchwork of scar tissue and cheap cybernetic oculars. "Clear the hall, leave the diplomat alive for ransom, butcher the rest," Vaughn shouted through his respirator. Kale dragged Ambassador Valen backward into the archive vault. Arthur shuffled behind them, clutching a physical leather-bound file folder against his chest as if it were a shield. "The main comms are dead," one of the surviving Aurelian aides shrieked, cowering against the far wall of the vault. "They've deployed a localized tachyon damper. No signal is getting out to the orbital fleet." Commander Kale was bleeding from his upper shoulder, his primary weapon scorched and useless. "We are trapped," he muttered, his vocal sac deflating in terror. "The vault security system is locked to the central spire network, which they now control. We cannot seal the secondary emergency bulkheads without master administrative authority from the central core." Outside the vault's trans-steel door, the sounds of slaughter died away, replaced by the heavy, methodical thump of a thermite breaching charge being clamped to the locking frame. White-hot heat flared around the door's edges. Vaughn stepped through the ruined portal, his heavy rotary plasma gun leveled directly at Ambassador Violin's head. 4 Carcarian mercenaries fanned out behind him, weapons trained on the trembling survivors. Ambassador Valen, Vaughn rasped, his cybernetic eye zooming in on her face. You are coming with us. Your guard lies dead outside. Drop your sidearms, or we dismantle your entourage, starting with the soft one. Arthur, standing quietly beside the vault's internal control terminal, took a small step forward. Stay back, Clerk. Kale hissed, terrified the human's movement would trigger a spray of plasma fire. Do not provoke them! Arthur paid no attention to Kale. He set his leather folder neatly on the console desk. Then, with deliberate, unhurried precision, he reached up, unhooked his wire-rimmed glasses, and folded them neatly into his coat pocket. Vaughn sneered, raising his rotary gun. What is this? The scribe wants to make a speech before he dies. Not a speech, no, Arthur said. His voice was no longer dry or rasping. The faint, nervous posture in his spine vanished as he straightened up, instantly adding 2 inches to his height. His eyes, previously dull and watery, were cold, flat slate. Arthur reached down beneath the collar of his suit jacket and pulled out a dull silver keycard attached to a faded black cord. He slid the card into an unlisted maintenance slot beneath the vault's main panel. The console chimed, not with the bright, singing note of the Aurelian interface, but with a harsh, low-frequency hum that pulsed through the floorboards. Master recipped. The computer voice droned in hard, archaic Terran standard. Ghost Protol activated. Emergency isolation engaged. Before Vaughn could pull his trigger, blast doors 4 inches thick slammed down from the ceiling behind the mercenaries, sealing the vault off from the corridor. Simultaneously, the overhead lumens died, plunging the vault into pitch darkness, broken only by the red emergency strips along the floor. What did you do? Vaughn roared, sweeping his tactical light toward the console. I locked the door, Arthur said, from the shadows. Vaughn switched his cybernetic eye to tactical war scan mode. A grid overlay illuminated his vision, analyzing biometric signatures in the room. The scanner swept across Valen, heart rate, 160 BPM, extreme distress, Kale, heart rate, 185 BPM, shock, and finally locked onto the silhouette standing near the darkness. The scanner began blaring an automated warning directly into Vaughn's auditory neural link. Target identified. Nun Terran combatant, 42 heart PM. Optimal combat readiness. Galvanic skins fonspons. Biometric match. Erst file law. Unit Ghost Battalion Threat writing. Cataclysmic. Abandon engagement. Vaughn's breath hitched. Ghost Battalion? That's a myth. Earth erased those units 20 years ago. He never finished the sentence. The darkness moved. There was no flash of plasma, no loud thunder of gunfire, only the crisp, sickening sound of snapped composite armor and shattering bone. The Carcarian mercenary on Vaughn's left collapsed before his body even hit the ground, his throat crushed by a kinetic palm strike delivered with terrifying velocity. Before the second mercenary could raise his rifle, Arthur seized the weapon's barrel, twisted it outward to break the soldier's wrists, and used the heavy stock to drive the mercenary's head backward into the reinforced bulkhead. "Shoot him! Shoot him! Shoot him!" Vaughn screamed, opening fire wild into the dark. Plasma bolts illuminated the vault in blinding strobe flashes, revealing brief, nightmare glimpses of the quiet Clerk. Arthur moved with zero waste of motion, not dodging bullets like a dancer, but stepping inside the mercenaries' blind spots with surgical precision. He was a machine stripped of fear, anger, or hesitation. An alien mercenary swung a monomolecular blade in a wide arc. Arthur slipped under the strike, caught the alien's elbow joint, snapped it backward against his own shoulder, and drove the mercenary's own blade deep up through the soft neck seal of his power armor. In less than 12 seconds, 3 heavy shock troopers were dead or dying on the deck. Vaughn backed away, his heavy rotary cannon spinning up to speed. "Stay back! Stay away from me!" Arthur stepped into the light of a flicking red emergency tube. His navy suit jacket was unbuttoned, his cuffs turned back precisely 2 inches. There was not a single drop of blood on his shirt, though his knuckles were bruised red. "You brought heavy plasma into a pressurized archive vault," Arthur said softly, stepping forward. "Do you have any idea how much delicate historical documentation you've endangered today?" Vaughn fired. The plasma stream tore through the console behind Arthur, but Arthur was already gone. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, grabbing the superheated barrel of Vaughn's weapon with his bare, calloused hand, ignoring the searing heat, and jammed his thumb into the weapon's primary cooling vent. The rotary gun backfired violently, exploding in Vaughn's grip and taking 2 of his cybernetic fingers with it. Before the syndicate enforcer could scream, Arthur drove 2 fingers directly into Vaughn's neck plexus, cutting off the blood flow to his brain. Vaughn crumpled to the floor, unconscious before he touched the tiles. Silence fell over the archive vault, heavy and absolute, broken only by the faint hum of the emergency air scrubbers. Ambassador Valen pressed herself against the back wall, her silver skin pale with sheer disbelief. Commander Cale sat frozen on the floor, his 4 eyes wide, staring at the clerk as if a demon had just crawled out of the ancient Earth scriptures. Arthur took a deep breath. His resting heart rate didn't even drop. It had never risen in the first place. He walked calmly back to the main console, pulled his dull silver keycard from the maintenance slot, and pressed the secondary release valve. The red emergency lights faded, replaced by the soft, warm illumination of the standard overhead lumens. The heavy blast doors slid upward with a quiet hiss, revealing the empty, secured corridor beyond. Arthur reached into his suit pocket, pulled out his wire-rimmed glasses, unfolded them, and slid them back onto the bridge of his nose. He adjusted them with his ink-stained thumb. He picked up his leather-bound folder from the desk, dusted off a small fleck of ash from its cover, and turned towards the stunned Aurelian ambassador. "The threat has been neutralized, Ambassador," Arthur said, his voice instantly returning to its dry, rasping rasp. "The secondary security grid is once again operational. I have taken the liberty of sending a priority distress ping to the orbital fleet under standard clerical protocols." Commander Cale swallowed hard, trying to regain his posture as he looked at the piled bodies of the sector's most feared mercenaries. "You! What are you?" Arthur didn't look at Cale. He pulled a pen from his cardigan, opened his folder, and began jotting down a damage assessment report. "I am the Assistant Administrative Clerk, Commander," Arthur said mildly. "And if we don't clear these bodies before 5 o'clock, the smell will be quite impossible to remove from the carpet."